you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Today we have some interviews. It's candidate day. I think the overlying story here is one thing people ask me all the time about 2020 and the impact that it may have, and I will tell you this, that there are a larger than I remember usual number of people who said, who at least took the lesson, you know what, we just can't trust this thing to move along honestly and go about our lives. I think I need to jump in the game here, and I need to represent myself and represent the people who aren't being represented. That is what we see on the Republican side of things quite a bit this year. So I think the thing that the two candidates we're going to have on today, really from a national race to a local race, what they have in common is two people that got off their butts and decided, I'm going to do something.
Make a change.
And we're going to ask them questions. And because of the name, The People's Pundit, I'm going to take them from you. All right? Now, of course, I'm going to ask things I want to ask too. But, generally speaking, I did open up that live chat on peoplespundit.locals.com. And I asked you to submit questions. And amazingly, there are people who live in Joe Kent's district. We're going to have on Joe Kent, former Green Beret, running to replace Trump impeacher, Representative Butler. All right? And that will be an interesting interview. And then we'll have Patrick Thomas, who is running in Huntersville for the Board of Commissioners. So people ask me all the time about this, and I say we hyper-focus on these national races, but absolutely right down to the grassroots core, every single office matters. Democrats participate more than Republicans in everyday township, municipal, local politics. Laura and I live in a Trump 32 district. We live in a Trump 20-something county. And yet Democrats count the votes. Democrats issue deeds. Democrats control the school system. And even people in our neighborhood are just starting to realize, wait a minute, this isn't right. And January 6th, which we'll ask Joe Kent about, all right, because of this commission, we'll talk about that too. January 6th caused an enormous explosion in this county because the superintendent of schools took it upon herself, thought it was like legitimate, to go on YouTube and decided to lecture the parents about how this was basically an insurrection. You know, sounded like Joe Biden, the worst thing since the Civil War, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, and that these people who are charged with freaking trespassing are being called domestic terrorists. And she did as well. Basically had that viewpoint. I don't know if she called them domestic terrorists, but she had that viewpoint.
But she insinuated it.
Yeah, she insinuated these were very bad people who, you know, and back then, if you remember, the Washington Post and everybody was lying about police officers that were killed and innocent people and blah, blah, blah. Of course, we know the only person killed on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt, and we still don't know why. All right, moving on. All right, so we're going to have a lot of fun. We'll bring on Joe Kent at 11:30. All right, and I'm going to run a clip of him beforehand because it's... you know, because we're going to get into polling here in a second anyway, but I think I may be the only one who before the election in 2020 was publicly polling on the question of tariffs. Right? And we were polling in the battleground states. We had the Midwest Battleground Poll, which we started with the AAPOR Times and then finished ourselves. Well, I mean, it was Pennsylvania plus 20-something. Do you support or oppose the use of tariffs as a strategy in trade negotiations? It was overwhelming. Huge disconnect even between Fox News and their supposed viewers. Huge disconnect. Everywhere from Minnesota to Wisconsin to Iowa to Ohio to Pennsylvania to Michigan. Very popular. And we're going to talk about that with Joe. All right, speaking of polling. I got into this on What Are the Odds a little bit on Monday, but this is inside the numbers. So let's get a little bit more inside the numbers. The AAPOR report, the autopsy. Worst polling blunder in 40 years. In fact, it's worse than that. And if you watch What Are the Odds, grin and bear with first, indulge me for a moment while I repeat myself. If it was not for the pollsters that everybody loves to hate, the pollsters that everybody loves to smear, and the pollsters that everybody flat out bans, the polling would have been worse than what it really is in that AAPOR report. There are a couple of us that aren't included at all, and then there are a couple that are mentioned because of those averages that are public averages. And the bottom line is, they smear you before the election as the not credible poll. You were too pro-Trump. Robert's too pro-Trump. Jim is too pro-Trump. Patrick is too pro-Trump. And I'm too pro-Trump. They are telling in the narrative not to take us seriously. And then they want to use the rest of us to make their work look better than it was. And to draw erroneous conclusions from it. The AAPOR report claims that there is no difference in the mode of collection. That is bogus. Why? Because they also included polls like YouGov, Morning Consult, Reuters, who has Ipsos do their polling. Yeah, I'm naming names. These are not voter file, even deduped consumer panels. No offense, it's garbage. You can use consumer panels like Cint is a great consumer panel provider. Cint. C-I-N-T. But then you better know what the hell you're doing when you're qualifying who is and is not truly registered and eligible to vote. What's their vote history? You can sure as hell use a company like Dynata. Call your account manager. Pay a little bit more money and they will dedupe it against the Aristotle voter file. But you don't want to pay that money. They don't want to pay the money. Phone polling skewed 11 points more pro-Biden for us, generally speaking. You could not reach certain groups of people who I have spoken about ad nauseum. It's more than just, let me explain something. It is not good enough anymore to wait for age, race, gender, your usual suspects. Even education, they started to catch on in 16 a little bit with. But I have been beating it like a dead horse. Region and education. Region and education. And frankly, we have to come to grips in this industry with it's a simple fact. Randomization has betrayed us because we betrayed randomization. The minute you open a voter file and you say, okay, only give me the cell phones, only give me the landlines, you betrayed randomization. You have to start looking at this as different pools of people. And the only way to compensate for that, the only way, is larger samples. The problem many of these pollsters ran into this year is that COVID, when it came to the panels, COVID caused a boost in panel participation. All of these Zoomers had nothing else to do except go, oh, I'm signing up. Orange man bad. Orange man bad. Click, click, click. And everybody knew it. Everybody knew what the panels looked like before, and people knew what they looked like after. Us, our company, and a couple of the vendors we work with have discussed this in detail. And the general consensus is that COVID sent a shock of professional classers into the panels, and they were grossly overrepresented. They also happen to be the most likely to participate in these surveys to begin with, which is what people will not recognize. If you think 800 people in Wisconsin is good enough, you're wrong. When we say it's 800, 1,000, we mean we oversampled. Mm-hmm. And it's 800, 1,000 in representation now. How much was it after we had to continue on and on and on to reach the people in Rusk, to reach the people in Polk? Because when you do finally reach them, like Robert so notably put it, when you finally reach someone in Greene County, Pennsylvania, guess who you're going to reach first? Like Nate Cohen at the New York Times, he's going to reach the librarian or the school teacher. So you may look dumb thinking Joe Biden's going to carry Greene County. It is so much more than, well, I'll just wait for age. I'll just wait for race. I'll wait for gender. I'll wait for that. No. You have to map the electorate out. The potential electorate has to be mapped out, and you need an adequate sample size for all of these different subgroups. That's why it took us so long. That's why we told you, you know what, Wisconsin, it's almost done. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. The New York posted an entire feature on it. The Northwest is underrepresented. The Northwestern counties are underrepresented. Calling them or getting them on the phone or getting them to take an online survey. And at glance, well, it's 48-52. Female, male, female. Maybe we got it. Immediately, ideology should be a flag to you that, whoa, this may be too metro. I'm just giving some hints. Ideology. If you look at the ideology that's coming back in your sample, and you look and you see maybe it's 25% conservative, you did something wrong. When you look and you ask about religiosity and it's 24% Protestant, you did something wrong. When you're polling Pennsylvania, and this is why we did this with Ancestry, nobody else did what we did. Nobody. If it's 9% Russian, you did something wrong. German is the largest sub-ethnic group in Pennsylvania. And this told us, this guided us. Okay, we got central Pennsylvania, but what does it look like? Did we get school teachers and librarians to answer the phone or respond online? Or did we get what central Pennsylvania looks like? Because guess what? those people don't want to talk to us anymore. So you're not going to reach them with randomization. It's not going to happen. Oh my God, it's a pollster who doesn't believe in randomization. It's a new world. Different people respond to different modes of collection at different rates. And just because Morning Consult didn't do any better than Fox News doesn't mean there aren't differences between the modes. There are. You're just not doing it right. You just universally screwed up. And no, it's not Donald Trump's fault. It's your fault. Because you wanted to believe it. The only few states where the raw data collection looked pretty good for someone like Donald Trump and Republicans in general, they were few and far between. Ohio. Even at times I told you Iowa looked like it could be closer than Ohio. In the end, they were not. And we could clearly see that. Florida. If you had a Biden plus anything in Florida, you should quit and get a new job right now. If you had Biden plus anything in Ohio, quit and get a new job right now. Because some of these were just completely unexplainable. Some of these errors cannot be autopsied. You're just bad at what you do. You're either incredibly bad at what you do, or you're ideologically corrupt. Either way, you shouldn't be in the business of public polling. In Wisconsin, look at a state like Wisconsin, unlike Michigan and unlike Pennsylvania. I told the viewers this a million times. Much of Wisconsin looks more like Iowa than it does Pennsylvania. So raw data collection may just give you a Biden plus too damn much. Or you could just end up completely in left field with Langer research with Biden plus 17. When I tell you that Wisconsin skewed Biden, all right, even in our own collection, right off the surface, all right, if you were to just go out and get 400 to 800 responses, you're probably going to come up with a Biden plus 6. I just pulled Wisconsin. I was crunching it over the weekend. Mm-hmm. We had been polling it for another project for a while. We're waiting by 2020 vote, and we can see if we just wait like normal media university pollsters, and we just wait for the regular superficial demographics, it was Biden plus 7. Or Biden plus 6. Of course, there was a 6 in Biden's margin of victory, but there was a decimal point before it. Again, that was a state I could see where you could mess up. We overestimated Joe Biden in Minnesota by 2.5 points. We overestimated his support. We overestimated Donald Trump by 1 point in Ohio. By 1 point in Iowa. We underestimated him by about 0.5 point in Florida. These are sufficient errors. We overestimated him, according to the recorded vote, in Arizona by 2 points. With a 2.1 margin of error, or sampling error, correct term. With a 2.1 sampling error, errors within the sampling error going both ways are a defendable track record. That is legitimate work. Errors that skew 4 points or more outside the sampling errors in one direction and one direction only are not legitimate errors. They should be random. Almost, they should look random anyway. There's some artifact with the polling methodology itself that's being created there. And, it would give a lean in different ways for different states, but you wouldn't be able to discern it, at first glance, because it wouldn't all go in one direction. It wouldn't all be Biden overestimated 6 points, Biden overestimated 9 points, it wouldn't be Biden overestimated across the board. You did something wrong, or you did it on purpose. And to just defend myself against some of these people I see on the Twitter feed, you can't guess a track record as accurate as mine. I'd have to be Nostradamus to get this close for the last 4 election cycles. Maybe the other guy's the fraud.
Could you explain the margin of error?
So if you're saying that the sampling error is 2.1%, then just, because I'm going to do it. Yeah, I really need to do a video on this. Then if you say Trump is ahead by 1.5 points, and he wins by, let's say 3 points or whatever, then you're roughly within that sampling error. If your sampling error is 2 points, but yeah, you did a good job. If your sampling error, like the New York Times, is, let's say, I don't know, 2.5%, something like that, and you have Biden plus 9 in Pennsylvania, you are way outside of the sampling error.
You're off your rocker.
You're 3 times outside the sampling error. It's indefensible. You're not good at what you do. And the fact is, there are people who acknowledge these problems, these challenges with the polling industry many, many, many years ago. So even those who messed up on accident, all right, they were good faith screw-ups. They weren't doing it to create a narrative, like I believe now most of these people did do. Because we explained to many of them, folks, before the election, this is what you did wrong in 2018. This is what you did wrong in 2016. Their refusal to listen to their betters is either complete arrogance, hubris, or their job is not to give you an accurate depiction of the race. Their job is to influence the race. There's only 2 explanations. There are only two explanations. Manipulation or arrogance. And to blame Donald Trump when some of us got it right and so many of us did not is just another cop-out that is a signal to you that you cannot expect anything better from them in the future. Just like what happened after 2016, their little pretentious BS that, we really weren't that far off. The polls really weren't that bad. Bull shnikey. When the errors are all in one direction, you did a bad job. And it's a red flag, folks. It's a red flag. If Biden was up by 9 in Pennsylvania, they overestimated him by 7 points. Then where was the Trump plus 17 in Ohio? Right? Mm-hmm. Where was the Trump plus 10 in Florida?
Yeah.
Didn't happen. You never saw them. Where was the Trump plus 15 in Iowa? Didn't happen. Where was the Trump plus 8 or 9 in North Carolina? Didn't happen. Where were these? Wisconsin was a razor-thin margin. Where was the Trump plus 9 in Wisconsin? Didn't happen. Anybody who tells you otherwise is a liar. That is a red flag. You should have errors in both directions. We overestimated Joe Biden a little bit in Minnesota, a little bit in Wisconsin, whatever it may be. We overestimated Donald Trump a little bit in Ohio, a little bit whatever. That is the way it should be. That's when it's legitimate. I'm trying to keep in frank language as possible here. That is legitimate. Gross errors in one direction is not legitimate. You did send those links, right?
Of course.
Of course
He's waiting in the queue.
All right. And I'm just, trying to give people a little bit of an idea of what you're up against, because it's not going to get any better. In 2016, when people like myself said, whoa, this is now the second cycle where we have a series, and it was before Trump. A lot of these problems predated Donald Trump. The people did clam up because of the way the media treated them. You support Donald Trump? You're not a decent person. Which is why we started including the social desirability bias indicators. We knew when somebody was lying. For the most part. Mm-hmm. You can't catch every single one, but you knew when somebody was lying. This person is afraid to tell me the truth. How do I know? Question 25A. They just told me they don't like having this interview. They are afraid to be truthful about their political beliefs because of the atmosphere in this country. It is not It is not because Donald Trump came along, and these problems predated Donald Trump. They got worse because of the media and their friends in the Democratic Party not having a rational policy discussion, which is what all, old election guys like me once upon a time called it. Voters made a rational policy choice. No. They abandoned that this time. It was fear and shame, fear and shame, fear and shame. So, take your head out of the cubicle and try to put yourself into a middle American position. You get a call on the phone from somebody you basically view as your enemy. Oh, these liars. They're turning us into slip and fall lawyers.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. That's what they're turning us into slip and fall lawyers. My cousin Vinny kind of crummy, sleazy lawyer. That's how the country is going to look at our industry.
Yes.
And don't expect anything better. In 2018, they knew they were wrong in the state level polls. Joe Donnelly is no longer the senator from Indiana. Claire McCaskill is no longer the senator from Missouri. Bill Nelson is no longer the senator from Florida. I could just keep going and going and going. Richard Cordray did not beat Mike DeWine. I mean, how many more averages do I have to keep? These are all polling leads for Democrats that went down not only badly. Folks, they went down in a blaze of glory. Andrew Gillum plus 12. CNN. And what did they do? Oh, we were generally right about the House vote. Our problem is fixed. They weren't right about the House vote. They overestimated Democrats by 7 points. They weren't. But they swept it under the rug, heading into a presidential election, knowing damn well they didn't have state polling down. They didn't care. You either don't care because you're making a tacit admission that you can't do your job well, or you're doing it intentionally. There's just no other way. There's just no other way. All right, listen, before I bring on the candidate here, all right, I'd like to play a clip. It's about 45 seconds or so. All right, I'm going to play this. We're going to bring on our first guest, and I have some questions from the locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com, and I will do my best to add those questions, to ask those questions, or get to as many as I can. All right, but the bottom line here is 2022 is going to be the election that defines the Republican Party from now on. And the Republican Party is going to have to decide whether it likes winning working class voters of all colors, shapes, creeds, or whether it wants to go back to a very limited party. And the primary decisions are going to make or break that direction. So I want to speak to as many primary candidates as I can this year. And we're going to start right now. 45 seconds.
Get on a wartime footing to bring back manufacturing to this country. We use the power of the federal government to tell all these companies, all these corporations that have shipped their jobs overseas, you come back now. Awesome. And you can have corporate tax breaks. We'll make it good for you because this is your patriotic duty if you're an American company. Yeah. If you choose not to do that, that's fine. You can do business in China or anywhere else, but we will tariff the ever-living heck out of you. Our nation used to run entirely before the income tax came. We used to run entirely on tariffs. So we need to bring back and offensively use tariffs. Most of the free market types in the Republican Party don't like to talk about tariffs because it affects the Wall Street bankers, it affects the top corporate elite. But we need to look out for the American working family. That's why the left is attacking it. That's why America First must defend it. That is 100% our agenda. You have to get on a wartime.
My fault. I hit start new session, not connect, and I booted him off. So give him a hot minute, and he'll come back on. Yeah, that was totally my fault. But yeah, that's the candidate. His name's Joe Kent. He's running for Washington 3. He's a Republican. And running against someone who did, in fact, vote to impeach the former president. And if anybody thinks this isn't going to be an issue, there is one fundraising machine on the right now, and his name is Donald Trump. Whether you agree or disagree with the directions he's taken, or the priorities he's made post his presidency, he is the one raising the money, and Donald Trump doesn't forget. Donald Trump does not forget. And those who voted, David Valadao, and others, are going to have to fight. Some people in Illinois, for instance, Adam Kinzinger, he has a fractured race. And there are some races where you have Republican challengers that I don't want to say have the field to themselves, because in many cases they don't. But the bottom line is they're standout candidates. Mm-hmm. And the left does not do this. The left does not crowd a field and choke out the insurgent candidate. Generally speaking, the activist left gets behind, chooses an insurgent candidate, and then gets behind them, and goes. There's no other way to put it. They have this really bad habit of what's the word I'm looking for? Hurting people.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Kent, there you are. I want to thank you for joining us. That was totally my fault before, live things. That's it happens. But thanks for joining us. Welcome to Inside the Numbers. Yeah, anytime. I put up on locals, and amazingly, there are people in my locals community who live in your district. So
right.
I know, and I'm like, I guess that's the internet for you. So I mean, as the name suggests, the People's Pundit, I'm just gonna shoot you their questions and basically tell you what they are interested in and would like to hear from you. The Congress, we have this, and I don't think I'm allowed to talk about the polling yet. Am I, from Rasmussen? It's embargoed, or is it not?
I don't know.
All right, can we find out? Because I wanted to ask Joe about this, but basically we have this investigation, Joe, in Congress, and Kevin McCarthy. And I know this, I'm probably going to put you in a really bad spot here, but people want to know what your thoughts are on the Republican effort to meet this. Do you think Kevin McCarthy put forward the right people, or what do you think the Republican strategy should be here? Because there's a lot at play. A lot of people are saying, well, there's more to investigate here than the protests. We all know about the protest.
Yeah, is this the January 6th commission you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah, I should have made that very, clear.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a little conflicted on it. I would like a full adjudication. I'd like for all the facts to come out. I would like for the Capitol Police, the FBI, the entire apparatus that was charged with security that day to have to come clean in a full, open, transparent hearing with, in particular, how many undercover agents or officers or people under the control of the intelligence community that were involved in the planning of the January 6th incident, because I don't think that's been made very clear. A lot of folks have been charged, have been hunted down for generally misbehaving, either going into the Capitol or doing something. And to be clear, I think anyone who acted violently should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. However, we've had people held now for 6-7 months without any charges, which is completely and totally un-American. So to get back to your original question, I want there to be a full adjudication of January 6th. I'm just very skeptical of the history of these types of congressional inquiries. If you look at the 9/11 Commission, there's still 40 pages of that are classified, and the American people just can't see the reason, or they can't see what that data is, and that's just been such a massive incident in our history. It's ridiculous to me that that's still classified. The Iraq War Commission was highly partisan and really just delivered a result that really covered for the establishment. So I'm skeptical. I hope that whatever process takes place, it's just very transparent.
Yeah, I'm not an activist, but that was going to be my next question. The locals community knows I went on Saturday to Matt Brainerd's lookaheadamerica.org rally because it just hit a nerve with me, Joe. I don't know what to say. It hit a nerve. And I mean, if you're charged in this country, the allegations that came out of some of these letters, I can't believe the media is not talking about them. Believe me, if it was BLM, they would be talking about them. These people say they're subjected to nightly beatings. One said that they're woken up in the middle of the night by the D.C. corrections officer and mace them. Yeah, they don't give them food sometimes. They don't allow them to speak to their counsel sometimes. Discovery or whatever it's called. And this is basically habeas corpus kind of stuff. But it's crazy, and there wasn't a single Republican congressman at Matt Brainerd's rally when we know that when we have the database now of who's in there thanks to Matt. We're not for nothing, I mean, single people out here, but Congressman Webster has quite a few constituents rotting in that D.C. jail, and he's doing nothing for them. Would you be a bigger advocate for these people? I mean, doesn't everybody deserve due process in this country, even if they are violent offenders?
100%. So I think at this point, I mean, I would be an advocate for anyone in this position right now. If they've been held without charges for this long, that's just something we can't allow to happen in our country. Even if you disagree completely with the reason why they went and protested, they still have the right to protest. If they're charged of a crime and they're arrested and they're detained, they have the right to a fair and speedy trial. I mean, that's incumbent upon our entire system. And so I don't see why there aren't more leaders right now just stepping up to the plate. I would expect ones that are on the right, Trump supporters and Republicans, to be out there, with Matt Braynard, and then to really be using their powerful positions to advocate on behalf of these people. But really, I would expect there to be more civil libertarians out there as well, or people that just believe in free speech and believe in our process, elected officials and non-elected officials, just to be out there and to be vocal, because this is very scary. This is very dangerous. We were told for the last 4 years that everything that President Trump did was an assault on our democracy.
Right.
We can debate the merits of that. I don't think that the data really reflects that. But here we actually have assaults on our very system, people being held without due process, and it's by and large not being reported. I mean, it's just one of the many indicators that say that we are heading to a very dark place in our history.
I probably should have started with this, but we kind of just rolled into it. And if I'm going to interview candidates, I like people to get to know motivations. I've met a lot of people in this business, and everyone's different. Everyone's got a different story. Why did you do this? Did you want to be, basically give me your thought. How did you decide, I'm going to run for Congress?
So it's kind of so really the straw that broke the camel's back was when the woman I'm primarying, Jamie Herrera Butler, voted for the impeachment of Trump. Just before that, she voted to certify the election that at the time I felt there was widespread discrepancies with. And right now we're seeing it all come to light that there was widespread, not just discrepancies, but more than likely fraud. So that was really the catalyst that made me run for Congress in particular. But just to back things up for folks that aren't familiar with who I am, I served in the Army for a little bit over 20 years, special operations, did 11 combat deployments. I saw, in that time, I like to say I saw the best and the worst of the country, the best being young men and young women from all over the nation, every race, creed, background, come together and fight for this country, especially after 9/11. That was because people from this nation love this nation and know it's something worth fighting for. The worst, I say, is the way that our establishment, our permanent ruling class, both sides of the political aisle, had no issues with lying to the American people about why we're at war, and then keeping us at war for financial gain of the military-industrial complex, but then also the hubris complex of people that couldn't admit that they had got something wrong and taking corrective action and had the leadership ability to correct mistakes. And that's kind of the story of the global war on terror. We went to war initially to go after Al-Qaeda, but then we quickly deviated into missions of regime change and nation building that have done nothing for our country. It's cost us trillions of dollars. It's cost us thousands of lives. When President Trump came on the scene, he really spoke to me personally when he went after the Republican national security establishment and said that we had gotten it wrong. He wanted to use decisive force to crush our enemies, then get us out. And he did just that. He let us beat the territorial caliphate. This is kind of where my story takes a tragic turn. My late wife, Shannon Kent, who was also in the military, she was a trailblazer for women in the special operations community. She was killed fighting ISIS in Syria about a month after Trump attempted to get our troops out the first time. So Trump realized we had met our military objective, tried to pull our troops out, and then we all remember Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis and many other unelected bureaucrats slapped the American people in the face, went against the orders of a duly elected president to leave our troops in Syria. A month later, my wife and 3 other great Americans were killed fighting ISIS in a place that we have no strategic interest in. So I started speaking out on behalf of President Trump, despite all the personal grief that I was going through, because I really believed in his policies, especially the America First foreign policy. Then I resigned from the government and moved my kids. I have 2 young sons, moved them back to the Pacific Northwest, where I'm from. And then 2020 happened. We saw the COVID virus be weaponized against the American people to deprive us of our First Amendment rights. And then the election of 2020 went the way it did. At the same time, we had nightly riots in the Pacific Northwest coming from Portland, Oregon, my hometown, marching into the 3rd Congressional District, where I chose to live because it's kind of the last bastion of conservative traditional American values on the West Coast. All this was kind of happening at once. The 2020 election really brought everything to light, how the country is really being changed radically by everyone who has control of our power, all of our institutions. And I saw all of our institutions failing. And then I saw the woman who I voted for, Jamie Herrera Butler, who was supposed to stand strong and protect us, do what she did by voting for the impeachment. And so to me, that was a call to action, that I could stand here and let the country that I fought for, that my late wife lost her life for, just crumble, or I could do something about it. So at the end of the day, I have to look my sons in the eyes and explain to them this is a country that their mother gave her life for, and right now I can't do that. So I want to do what I can and jump back into the fight to take the country back, and that's why I'm in this fight.
Yo, well, first, I can't even imagine that. There's really no words. Just my condolences, but it's got to be tough. I'm a father of 3.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine trying to do that on my own. My wife is, it's indispensable for me. So, God bless you. Really, God bless you.
Thank you.
I guess we did talk about, you brought up the pandemic, and that is one of the major questions people ask. What can be, so we don't know for certain now. We poll and we can see the country is very much in the position of, whether it was intentional or not, China did this to us and this came from a lab. That's what people believe, regardless of what the media tried to do. We're now touching 70% on that. So it's out. I mean, the cat's out. If it was proven, it's hard to get a smoking gun. What could or should be done? Some people say, would he make the Chinese pay reparations to us? There has to be some kind of punishment for not just us. They did this to the world.
Yeah, I agree. Really, I don't know if we'll ever fully know the intent, but the bottom line is the Chinese Communist Party was doing biological weapons research in the Wuhan facility. Somehow the COVID-19 virus, as we know it, got out. Whether that was an intentional leak or they just messed up. There's a good deal of past reporting that indicates they've had these leaks before, so more than likely they were just being sloppy. But like you said, I don't know if we'll ever fully know, but I think the bottom line is China does owe the world a good deal in reparations to make the world whole. Not that you can make the world whole for all the lives that have been lost, but we need transparency from them. And then I think as Americans, this has to be a wake-up call. We have to forcefully remove ourselves from anything to do on an economic or world stage with the Chinese Communist Party. They're at war with us. They've been at war with us for quite a while. We need to get all of our manufacturing production lines back from overseas. We need to seize Chinese property held here in America. We need to completely divorce ourselves from the system where we rely on the Chinese Communist Party, our number one geostrategic adversary. We rely on them right now to buy off our debt bonds because our country doesn't produce anything. So we've set an economic trap for ourselves at the time and place of the Chinese Communist Party's choosing. They could really take down our economy by stopping buying our debt bonds and challenging our status as the prime reserve currency holder. So I think we need to demand some debt forgiveness from them. I doubt that they will actually say, oh, okay, you got us. We'll forgive some of your debt. I don't think that that's going to work. I think we should still make that demand so they know that we're trying to hold them accountable, seize all the Chinese assets that are here in the U.S., and then get on a wartime footing to restore our production lines back to America. It's a national security issue. It's an economic issue. I think it's also a moral issue that we can provide people the ability to work in the manufacturing industry once more.
I think you probably covered 2 of the questions. There's the tariff one right there, folks. I think, basically know where you'd stand on that. We polled this before the election, Joe, in all of these Midwest battleground states. In Pennsylvania, the use of tariffs for strategic purposes during trade negotiations was plus 20 something. It was just not even close. Not even close. And there are not many Republicans. They want to be free traders and whatever that means. That's a cute little phrase and everything, but there has to be, right? And there has to be some strategy toward trade. It's not just, for transfer of goods. And it just doesn't, I think a lot of people just feel like that strategy is not geared toward helping them. So the bottom line is maybe they get cheaper goods, but it's not helping their community. It's not helping what job and ultimately is available for them or their kids. I remember when I was growing up, there was always this door manufacturing. They did storm doors and windows, and they were always there. And if you needed a job, maybe it was $12 an hour or something, you could go and do it. Those don't exist anymore. They're gone.
Right.
So that's one in and of itself. But I thought I missed something else. Can I just peek at this real quick?
Let me get it for you.
Because I did want to circle back
I have a fun
to that. Yeah. Oh, you had a fun one? I'm sorry, Laura, the producer here, is throwing it in here.
Well, because everybody needs a little.
What kind of industrial policy? I guess what he's asking is, what would you have in mind for an American system style, like to to encourage this, to encourage industry to come back. Because I think we're already seeing in the jobs reports, a lot of these Biden jobs are back to what we saw more like under Obama. So under Donald Trump, the real magic that was happening there, I think, was what pushing up wages, was a resurgence of the goods producing sector. And people know that it's important. You just brought it up before that, I mean, if we had certain, even drugs, manufacturing certain drugs here, then we wouldn't have been relying on China. What's your vision there? So, somebody brought up like Henry Clay, that kind of worldview.
No, so I think that anything that our country requires, we need to be producing here internally back home. Like you said, we've shipped those jobs overseas now for the past couple decades. So there's not like a magic switch that we can flip, but I think we need to get on a wartime footing. We tell all the companies that have shipped their manufacturing lines overseas, starting with our most vital ones, the production of pharmaceuticals, the production of PPE, and then even our raw goods, our steel industry. We need to tell those manufacturers, hey, you have a deadline to get your company back here on shores. If you do that because you're doing your patriotic duty, we are happy to cut you lucrative tax deals to make this in your best interest too, because you're going to come, you're going to create these jobs. It's going to be a net positive for America. But there has to be a stick at the end of that carrot that says, if you don't do this, you will get tariffed and you will not sell another good here in America. And we will figure it out, because we don't want to have to recreate the wheel, so to speak. But if there's a demand, we shouldn't be held hostage by a supply line overseas thinking that we can't produce it here in America. So I basically think we need to get back into producing pretty much everything in America. And that's going to require, again, that carrot and stick of tax breaks and then versus the tariffs, but then also with our energy sector and our natural resources sector here in the Pacific Northwest. We once had a very vibrant and sustainable timber industry. We need to get that back online too. It's the same thing for oil. It's the same thing for coal, natural gas, all those natural resources as well. We need to get rid of a lot of the regulation that's holding those back, and then kind of break down some of the regulation down to the local levels. I don't see why the federal government, especially with like the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service at the federal level, is controlling a lot of these natural resources. I think at the most they should be state issues, if not even more local than that, to allow these economies to return so that we don't need anything from overseas.
What about, and until Donald Trump came on the scene, this was an ugly word with Republicans, and then Donald Trump made it, maybe it always was with voters. It's not something we focused on, which we should have. Mm-hmm. What about infrastructure, right? So Republicans were generally against infrastructure projects. They thought, that investment word was just meant spending. And the reason why I'm bringing it up, because, it is different now. It's a different party under Trump, post-Trump and during Trump. But also somebody specifically asked, they're out by you, they live by you, and they asked about I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with your local, just so the user doesn't slay me here, but there's a bridge apparently that Washington and Oregon, that's it. So that's gonna make somebody happy. Where are you on that? I mean, they seem to not be able to agree on certain things, right?
So yeah, a big issue we've had, It's the I-5 bridge that connects Oregon and Washington, but it's Interstate 5. It controls the commerce for the entire West Coast from Mexico all the way to Canada. Basically what's happened, the Reader's Digest version is Oregon and Washington have been fighting about it, who pays for what here and there. It's a longer story than that. There's a couple more side issues there, but that's the overall gist of it. My opinion is this is a federal government issue. This is interstate commerce.
That's what they want to know.
Yep. And this is interstate commerce. This is interstate commerce that affects the entire West Coast. So the way that this has been done right now, we have like county commissioners from our counties in Washington and Oregon that are right there on the border that have been fighting it out. They've been talking about tax raises here for this city and for that city. And I just think that completely misses the point. I mean, this is something that has a vital federal angle to it because it just affects commerce for the entire West Coast. So I think there's been a serious lack of leadership from the federal perspective because it's going to be hard. We're going to have to allocate funds for it, but this is something that's going to increase commerce for the entire West Coast of America and then the entire U.S. apparatus of being able to actually transport goods and transport people. So this is definitely under the federal purview.
Where does your opponent stand on this? I mean, obviously just not doing much about it. I mean, apparently this has been going on. I didn't know until the user asked this question. And for me, yeah. I think that a lot of Republicans, when it comes to infrastructure, a lot of Republicans, maybe they don't like traditional Democratic kind of infrastructure ideas. But when it comes to commerce, I mean, it's vital, right? So there are just certain things that are vital.
Yeah. My incumbent's been really quick to let the local government fight it out, and every now and again try and do a grant as a band-aid. But those band-aids now have been going on. She's coming up on her 11th year in her congressional seat, and those band-aids have been going on way before she even came in. So this has been a big issue probably for the last 20 years plus. The amount of growth that we've had in the Pacific Northwest has really accelerated the demand for this. But again, the federal government's just been absolutely absent. And I think Republicans have just been wary to get into issues like this. But this is something that would, if we do it right and we harvest all the equipment and all the resources that we need to make these infrastructure projects, this is something that can be a net positive for all American people in terms of how they use these facilities, how they use this infrastructure, but then also the jobs that we'll create and the supply lines that we'll need that can be American supply lines to actually build these projects.
So I don't even know how to phrase this next one. I'm going to do my best here, but there is some skepticism towards certain Republican candidates. You have a military background, right? And they seem to get in, and maybe they get more hawkish as time goes on. And what I think I get from you is that you're very, not reluctant, maybe that's not the right word, but what is vital to you? I guess, where would you draw the line with a vital national security interest where you would support a military action? What would have to happen? Would it have to be some 9/11 type of event that would make you say, okay, now's the appropriate time to use military force, and you would support a president who would want to do that? Where's the line with you is what I'm trying to say.
So the line for me with the use of military force, we have to be able to fully articulate it to the American people what it is we're trying to accomplish, what the threat is and what we're trying to accomplish. And then the key thing that we have gotten from very few, if any, leaders other than Trump is, what's the end state? Where does it end? When have we decided that we use military force and it's done? And this is what being finished actually looks like. We call it an end state in the military and military terms, something that we lacked for the entire global war on terror. We usually just had a very lofty mission statement, like we're going to build a secure and democratic Iraqi government, or Afghan government. You're like, well, what does that even look like? Or we're going to completely defeat radical Islam. Like, I kind of don't think we are. So that's where I get very skeptical. But look, what I'm for is us having very robust intelligence networks throughout the world that can keep their finger on the pulse. And if we need to, we take preventative action, and it's a quick strike, and we get in and we get out. And other than that, our main national security power comes from us being an independent economy, that we can leverage the force of our economy either through sanctions or tariffs or us just being secure and not needing anything from the world. That's what keeps Americans safe and secure. We can use the military as a strategic projection of force if needed, but I don't want to get people into prolonged conflicts. I'm for surgical strikes. I think our intelligence community under Title 50, which is covert action, I'm a background in the intelligence community as well. I don't think we've used that to its fullest capability overseas. If you remember back before 9/11, we knew who Osama bin Laden was. He attacked America 3 different times. He declared war on us. We just lacked the courage to let the intelligence community to do its thing and actually go take this guy out. And we let it fester. And then we quickly found a mission that included the entire military industrial complex, because that's what the government does really well, is it finds a place for all these different pet projects and programs. So I think we need to be wary of that. Wary of that is being able to define what the threat is, how we're going to take it out, and how we're going to get out of it.
So you did, but would have supported the strike on Qasem Soleimani, right? So that's a surgical strike. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And it should have been done a long time ago. I mean, you could even go back to the Reagan administration when the Iranians bombed our embassy in Lebanon. But going to the Iraq war, once the Iranians started taking hostile action against us in 2004, we should have killed Qasem Soleimani then. It shouldn't have festered that long. When you find a threat like that, you take it out, you act decisively, and then you get out. The biggest advantage that we have in the U.S. military is we can project force better than anyone else. We only do our enemies and adversaries a favor when we get close to them and we stay in these places. Then we give them the ability to go recruit proxies, and proxies need 2 things. They need money and they need proximity. So if you're close to them, you're doing them a favor. And if you're not economically cracking down on whoever is backing them, you're doing them a favor. You can watch Iran. Every time that we give Iran sanctions relief, you see their proxies either in the Gaza Strip, their proxies in Iraq, their proxies in Syria, Yemen, wherever it is. They get much more active and create much more problems. when we use maximum pressure sanctions and Iran doesn't have as much money, their activity goes way down. So it's something that we can monitor again through having a strong economy and then a robust intelligence service.
And if one of the things the former president did was basically stop those whatever they were, I guess you would say I can't remember the acronym for them, but they're exceptions. So yes, Iran is not allowed to export oil to certain people, but don't worry, Germany, you'll get an exception. Don't worry, Italy, you get an exception.
Yeah.
He killed those waivers, which hurt them badly, and It looks like they're back, so they can fund their proxies. So basically, I don't want to jump ahead. One more, guys. I know that election reform is a big one, too, they want me to ask you about, but I don't want to jump around. Last one on foreign policy, I guess. Would you generally consider yourself a realist over versus an internationalist? I mean, definitely don't.
Yeah, very much. I'm a realist. I'm not an isolationist.
Right.
I think sometimes the way I talk about our endless wars, people are like, man, this guy's a total isolationist. I'm not. I just think we need to be able to get something out of our engagements overseas, whether that's foreign policy or that's an actual military action. So I'm very much a realist. I'm not against us having robust partnerships, but again, partnerships need to be a two-way street. It can't just be America opening up our wallet and sending people off to go bleed when our partners aren't doing the same thing. So I think realist is definitely the best way to describe my outlook.
And rather than just ask a very generic election reform question, I'm going to phrase it like this. There seem to be two different kinds of Republican candidates, and this is part of the battle for the Republican Party, really, in the post-Trump era. There are people who are willing to take election reform as a perfect example. The Constitution gives the states, obviously, the means to conduct elections, but then Democrats, they love to focus on the second part of that sentence, which says that the federal government shall make, laws from time to time. There really are two kinds of Republicans who would say, look, to secure the integrity of our elections, I think if we did take control of the House of Representatives, that we should look at the second half of that sentence and say, who knows, federal voter ID, whatever. I'm being general here. But actually, there's other verification procedures that are just as supported, and the media never tells people about. We pull this a lot. Where would you be on that? The Democrats clearly want H.R. 1, and they want to prohibit certain things that are already laws in states. Do you take the position we should just kind of have a hands-off, block any effort like H.R. 1, or would you look at the second half of that sentence and say, look, we can take some integrity, we can make some integrity enforcements here at the federal level?
Yeah, I would support us having a federal voter ID mandate, and then also a mandate that says you need to vote in person unless you can prove that you're indefinitely confined or a military overseas voter, a very clear standard for who gets to use the mail-in voting system, and then also some form of notary. I think a federal standard for notary for those ballots. But then from there, I do still want the states to run the elections, but there's a federal standard for ID. We already have this pretty much everywhere with, the states have a standard they follow for driver's licenses, and that allows you to get on an airplane, to buy alcohol throughout the country, that type of thing. So I don't see why it would be too hard for the federal government to have a standard on what voter ID is, and then to say, hey, unless you can meet this standard of indefinitely confined or military overseas, serving the government overseas, you will go vote in person and you will vote at your precinct, and the precinct rosters are continually scrubbed, at least once or twice a year. I think having general standards like that, and then it being on the states to actually run the execution of that, I think it's going to be key going forward. And I think a key part of that too is that we have to fully adjudicate the election of 2020. It's being done right now with some of the audits, but I think when we get into Congress, we take the House and the Senate back, we have to lay it all out for the American people so they can move beyond all the rival narratives as much as we possibly can in today's age, but just lay out all the data of how much fraud there was and just how horrible of a policy it is to have these massive unsolicited mail-out ballots.
Yeah, I think that gets me to the last and final question, which really goes to, what people would be able to expect from you, right? So would you be more, look, you wouldn't have that tab on your arm if you weren't an aggressive guy, all right? So would you be more aggressive? A lot of people look at this and they say, Joe, and this, now I'm allowed to talk about this Rasmussen poll, I guess. People say, okay, have the January 6th commission, right? And it's 47 to 42 no or something. It's pretty close. But then they also asked, well, what about all of the riots that happened in 2020? We're like, would you be one of those Republicans who would say, look, I'm all for getting to, having a full account here, but we can't just selectively investigate certain things. Would people be able to expect that from you? Would you be more aggressive, or would you be, I think really what they're asking would you be more offensive than defensive? Republicans are defensive players, and
Yeah,
I think
Republicans
that's really
yes.
frustrating people.
I would do everything I could to take the level of intensity I had as a Green Beret overseas to Congress. I mean, Republicans need to go on the offensive. We have to have a clear vision on every single policy. The Democrats do a really good job of, even if I disagree with their policies and I disagree with their vision, they do a great job of articulating their vision. If you listen to AOC talk, she can paint a picture for you of what she thinks America should look like. I disagree with probably 99% of the way that she paints that picture and her final product, but she at least paints a picture. Republicans for far too long have just been the party that says, well, I'm against what she just said, and every now and again I'll vote against it, but I don't want to be called racist and I don't want to be called any kind of name, so I'll back off as soon as I actually have to go fight for it. So we have to push for all kinds of things. I think the biggest thing that we have to push for and can't back down on is the adjudication of the election of 2020. It's my opinion, based on all the data that we've seen, that President Trump won. At any rate, I don't think Joe Biden got 270 electoral votes, and we have to safeguard the social contract that we have with our government, that we, the people, get to choose those that have a great deal of power over us. If we violate that, then we're going to be on the cusp of losing the republic that was bequeathed to us by our founders, and I think that's incredibly dangerous. There's just been so many lies and deception in the last several years, but in particular, the election of 2020, the origins of COVID, the entire January 6th narrative, that Republicans have to go on the offensive. And then to get our country back, we talked about bringing back manufacturing and all the reasons why we have to do that. We have to go on the offensive with that too. We can't just have these boilerplate talking points about, hey, I kind of want to cut some income taxes and, I don't know, maybe finish the Southern Wall. We actually have to have real concrete policies and then go after them and a plan for attack. And that's what I want to bring to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, the Hannity plan. People have to, Republicans have to get it. People just don't care about that talking point anymore. The income, like you said, it's boilerplate, and they can't see how that will impact their lives. You can laugh at AOC like conservatives did to her for a couple of years now, but you nailed it. The difference is she has a story. She has a story to tell. She can articulate her vision. And Republicans just don't. One of the biggest problems right now, without Donald Trump, what is their vision? They just don't, who are they? And I think that's, the elections like yours are going to answer that question. I really do think so.
Absolutely.
Well, Joe, we'd like to have you back. If stay in touch. I really appreciate you coming by. And we'd like to, check back with you to see how things are going in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. If people want to learn more, they can.
Yep. Go ahead.
If people want to learn more, they can go to joekentforcongress.com. I got all my stances of the issues on there, and if they can, I really appreciate a donation. I'm beating the incumbent, the 11-year incumbent right now. I'm beating her on grassroots individual donations. She's being supported by Kevin McCarthy and all the rhinos with PAC money, trying to drown out the base of the grassroots effort. So if people can support me, joekentforcongress.com, I'd really appreciate it.
That's their MO, Joe. That's their MO.
That's what they do, yeah.
All the best. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
So that was Joe Kent, Washington 3, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I got as many questions you guys posed as possible. And, we'd like to hear your feedback on it.
Yes.
On locals, definitely get in that chat. Tell us what's going on, what you think. And we'll check back with them. All right? But I'll tell you what. I was thinking about one of the questions. I don't want to take too much. I know we got to get to a break and get Patrick on. Mm-hmm. But there's some people, because I understand what some of the thinking was people were saying. There are some people, look, he's seen it. And some people, get more hawkish as time goes on. He was a special operator. I think he's one of those people. It goes in the other direction. It's in the other direction. Mm-hmm. You see it. You know what a responsibility it is to wield it. And you know the cost. And he's paid a cost. Mm-hmm. So the party's moving away from the Lindsey Graham vision, and his old buddy, the late John McCain. They're just moving away from that. So one of the highest interests everybody says is war and trade. It's amazing. 5 years after Donald Trump first announced, that's where this party is, the Republican Party is, that they're still on that. And way of life. And I should have got, it was a half an hour interview. We'll bring him back. I wanted to get into CRT and a whole bunch of other stuff we didn't have time for. We'll bring him back. Very interesting interview. Very interesting. All right, we'll be back in 2 minutes and 20 seconds with Patrick.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
He says I'm
And we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. You guys can follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit, and locals, of course, peoplespundit.locals.com. And, if you're on locals, then you can submit a question for anybody we have on. I like this format. I think that it's basically you conducting the interview, and I think that's the way it should be. What do you care about? Look, it's a major problem with the media that they think everything that they care about is what their viewers care about, right? An incredible interview with Brian Stelter got creamed on his own show by Michael Wolff, and I think that that's that's it in a nutshell. I mean, that says it all. And that's my fault. I brought him on a little too early. All right, so I'm going to bring on Patrick Thomas here, who is, again, like Joe Kent, a candidate who decided, I think I'm going to run because I can't. Well, you know what? I'll let him tell the story. Let's see what he has to say. Patrick Thomas, ladies and gentlemen, Huntersville Board of Commissioners. I hope I got your website right, Patrick. I hope I got your website. Thanks for joining Inside the Numbers.
Thanks, Rich. It's good to actually see you face to face finally.
Absolutely. It's like the internet world, phone, right? And you can get to know somebody, and this is the first time you get face to face with them. It's amazing how these things start. It really is.
Exactly.
So look, I think the thread here, Patrick, with you, Joe, and others we're going to start having on, is you heard his story, right? And I basically want you to tell yours first, and then we'll get into some other stuff. But what made you, and I was going to start the interview with Joe like this, but it just went off. What made you decide, you know what, I'm going to run for the Board of Commissioners?
Right. So what had actually happened was back in August of last year, I started noticing, and all my neighbors started noticing, trucks clearing out trees on both sides of the road, less than a mile from my house. And we assumed that just a new development was going in, but then they had police guarding it, and then there were signs saying no pictures allowed. So the question came up, what exactly is going on there? And I actually ran into a local business owner who told me, oh, that's the gas leak, the pipeline spill. And I was like, well, what pipeline spill? Nobody told us anything about it. Turns out it's the largest pipeline spill in the history of the state of North Carolina, less than a mile from our house. Nobody told us about it. So I started asking questions. I reached out to our congresswoman. She didn't even have talking points for what was going on there. I actually had to find out on my own by talking to the people that lived close there that it was over, I think right now it's like 500,000 gallons that spilled. And how they actually found it wasn't Colonial Pipeline, who is the company that owns the gas that runs back and forth through my development and the area that spilled. They didn't catch it. 2 kids on dirt bikes found it. And what they say...
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and what they said is they were riding and they started smelling gas. And they came upon a pond of gas sitting on the surface. Now, that hasn't even been reported in the media. So all these questions that were out there, I had to, go on my own, do the footwork to find out exactly what was happening. And then I started talking. I actually spoke with the mayor, and I spoke with a couple of the current board of commissioners. And they all said, well, our hands are tied. We only get side information. Colonial Pipeline won't even come and talk to us. So that got me at least involved in that sense. And then speaking with my neighbors and stuff, who were like, well, do we have to move now? What's going to happen to us? Is our water safe? So I actually spoke at the town hall and I said, why don't you just ask these questions? And I think that was a live town hall meeting where I asked, the mayor and the board, why don't you ask these questions to Colonial Pipeline? And then I challenged Colonial Pipeline to prove the water was safe by drinking from a well within a mile of the area of the spill. Of course, I didn't get an answer on that.
Epic. Can you hand me Patrick's shirt? I want to just show the viewers this.
I love it.
So, listen, for people who badly need messaging help out there, this is a good idea, okay? This is an example.
Smart.
So, for people who don't know, your middle name's Chance, right?
Correct.
So,
Yep.
Patrick Chance Thomas, and it's Take a Chance for Huntersville. Take a chance on Huntersville. That is, a chance for Huntersville.
Yep.
That's good. And
Thank you.
You came up with that yourself?
I did.
That's good. Anytime you can tie your name into not just a slogan, what you're saying here. So you're conveying that the town has really been it's been neglected. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I mean, I guess this big issue came to the forefront and made you think about this, right?
Right.
And did you weigh running for any other offices, or did you see a problem, identify a problem, and then say, you know what, this is the venue that I think I could be more effective in?
Right, and you and I had actually spoke about that.
That's why
my
original
intent or thought was to run as an independent inside our district against Congresswoman Alma Adams, the goofy hat lady.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this is a very deep blue district because it includes Charlotte, but the surrounding towns like Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson are pretty red, actually. But I thought that an independent might have a chance against her if the message got out there about what was going on and how this district was being neglected. I think Alma Adams has sent one tweet in total about the pipeline spill, and I think she sent one tweet after Colonial Pipeline was the victim of a malware attack.
Right. Yes. So you have heard, and that's why it may ring a bell to them. The Colonial Pipeline is what was hit by the cyber attacks, or allegedly. This is the story, right? Well, we don't know, right? Anytime the FBI tells me something, I'm always like, okay, show me, because I really like to know. But now we're seeing with some of they blame Russia originally, but it seems like that's the only way you can get a response, Patrick, from elected officials. If it goes after some infrastructure or a campaign supporter, or, when it comes to whether or not your water is safe, they don't give a damn. I mean, I don't know.
You would expect your local officials to at least give you some confidence in the quality of your water. At least tell you, you're safe because of we're not getting that. I mean, we are fortunately connected to city water, but there's still groundwater. And when you hear about a pond of gas sitting on the surface, that tells me that it probably hit the bedrock before it came up to the surface, which could be up to 200 feet. Now, I don't know how deep the groundwater is in some of those areas because some of those houses are on well water. So, I mean, that's concerning as well. And they're all Huntersville citizens who haven't gotten, I believe, straight answers on that.
Yeah, so go ahead. Finish your thought.
And I was just going to say, that's the issue that actually led me into running for the Board of Commissioners. It's a local election. I want to stay, close to where I'm living. And I want to, represent the people that live here because we don't really have brave leadership is how I would put it. Every person I talk to, the current board members and the mayor, they're not fighters. They give excuses. Well, that's out of our hands. That's out of our hands. Oh, we can't do that. Even for simple things like building a sidewalk, building bike trails, you keep getting these same answers. It's out of our control. We just can't do it. We can't do this. I mean, you're not even trying. You're quitting before you even try. So that's frustrating enough. And that's what led me to say, you know what, I'll throw my hat out there. I'll speak to the people about what I would do as a commissioner. And so far, the response has been really strong, I can say.
Yeah, that's the thing about local government. It's like they have these pet projects, and I think people are really starting to come to the realization how important local government is, right? And we always get, we're focused, if you're a news consumer, you're focused on all these national issues. The local government level is incredibly important, especially when it comes to what impacts you in your daily life. And a lot of these local governments, it's exactly what you're describing. They have their pet projects and they have their friends, right? And everyone knows somebody. And when it comes to anything that may need to get done for the community of the town, it's a very defeatist attitude. So they only have an I can when it's for the group. And then it's I can't. It's just, it's incredible. It's been like that, sadly. I think that's the nature of it, unless you get somebody in who really does have an initiative. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about bringing an initiative to a place that's kind of just running on autopilot. And
well, not just initiative, but a fight, actually. I mean, because we're part of Mecklenburg County, a lot of the fights are with Mecklenburg, and this board doesn't seem to even want to engage with Mecklenburg because they know it's going to be a fight.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to at least fight for your constituents. That's the resounding theme that you get when you go to these town halls. Well, why aren't you fighting for this? Why aren't you fighting for this? It's frustrating to even sit there and listen to it and see that these people aren't even really representing the people that put them there.
Yeah, when it comes to, just so from the way my mind works, people live in North Carolina. Place like Huntsville is incredibly important when you're looking at statewide swings in the state, right? So Mecklenburg is going to be Mecklenburg, and they're gonna vote Democrat, and you need places like Huntsville, if you're a Republican, to offset that and cut that down, so you shrink that margin. So basically, but you're still going to get from the top. You're still going to get this attempt to push agendas onto communities like yours, and if you I imagine. That would be something people would say, at least, what are you doing about this? And they just kind of they let smaller areas get steamrolled, is my point, is what I'm trying to say nicely here. To your knowledge, did anybody, after you asked them, did any of them call Colonial Pipeline?
No.
They never did?
No, actually, one of the commissioners, I will give her credit, she did call them out, but she didn't get a response.
She didn't get so she quit after that.
Right. I mean, that was kind of it, and that's what I mean.
I guess it's hard to push.
I think I think you have to call these people daily and say, give us an answer, and then report it back to the constituents every time they meet. Now, the town, the Board of Commissioners here only meets twice a month. So you've got plenty of time to make these calls, make them continuously, and then report it back to the people what's going on.
So you said the response from the community has been good. These entrenched local governments, just so people understand, they're not any easier to overcome than national entrenched politicians. They, in many cases, local politics can be even nastier. So what's the strategy, Patrick? I guess grassroots, ground and pound.
Absolutely. So my strategy is, it's really radical. I'm just going to talk to voters. That's it. And that's what I've been doing. I pound the pavement on my own. Like last weekend, I had my flyers. I sent you one of those cardboard squares.
You did?
You
know what? It's right here. As a matter of fact. See, you get it in front of people, and I'm serious.
Hold it up.
I'm not even kidding. You got it right. You get it in front of people, and it's like, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind.
Right, and that was my point with the Chants for Huntersville, is now my name is incorporated into my slogan. So when you go into the voting booth, you know Patrick Chance Thomas. There's the name, you see the slogan. So, and then just going out and delivering those flyers, talking to people, and not just to people, but to businesses too. I've been going into the smaller local businesses, handing those out and telling them, what I stand for and what I want to do and how I stand apart. Of course, it is a crowded field. There are 6 openings for the Board of Commissioner. 5 of them are incumbents that are rerunning, and one of them decided not to run. And the mayor also is not running for re-election. So you've got 2 people that aren't running for re-election and 7 people running to replace them.
When you go out to these businesses, because Huntersville does have a business district, when you go out to, what are you hearing from these people? They're just kind of going along to get along?
Not really. They never hear from anybody that runs. So a lot of them don't even vote inside these off-cycle elections. Yeah. They're not even aware they're going on. And that includes some of my neighbors too, when I started speaking to them and started handing out those flyers. And all I really did was tell them, look, this is what I believe in. This is what I want to do. I'm going to keep this town business friendly. And, if you vote for me inside this upcoming election, you'll know that you have a commissioner that has your back.
Yeah, I think that they rely on that, Patrick. They really do. These incumbents in these local governments, they rely on people not participating, which I think is a big difference this year. If there was ever a lesson for some people to learn in 2020, it's that you can't ignore these from the ground up. You just can't ignore it. From the ground up, every office matters. And I think for a long time, people like them benefited from this status quo, which is, maybe it's crowded one year, but generally it's the same group of people. We're playing musical chairs, and people they're not really hyper-focused on those races. Sometimes it's the only choice they got, right? Or they just kind of one-off choose, and you're trying to get, you're there up ballot, and you're seeing the names down ballot, right?
Right.
And, I mean, even informed people, I know that happens, informed on the national level. Down ballot, they're just not familiar. So that definitely can work in your advantage, though, in a year where I think we're just seeing something different here, which definitely is that people. Do you get an impression when you're on the ground and you're talking to people? Do you get an impression that maybe some people are more receptive than they would normally be? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely, especially with some of the contractors that I've spoken with. They're a lot more focused and a lot more engaged than they were previously, because like for housing, for instance, they're connected to prices, and they see things not going as well as they would like. And a lot of people are just looking for a straight up change. Some people they look at a ballot, they see the same name there over and over again, and they want to change, but they don't know what these new candidates stand for. So that's another part of being out there and telling people who you are and what you stand for.
Yeah, if you're a contractor or a builder and you have the prices shooting up at the pace we've been seeing, you can't have that permit get held up. You
Right.
can't have some red tape. The next minute, your quote is a month stale and the cost of lumber is quadrupled. You're in deep trouble. So responsive government is important to these people.
Exactly.
That's
It could save them thousands.
it could save them a ton of money. It might be somebody's job. Maybe
Right.
they hire somebody, or maybe they got to let somebody go because of it. So that's really incredible. What's a typical schedule like when you're doing this, Patrick? What's a typical schedule running on the ground, beating the pavement like this for a local office?
So for me, because I work full time, I have to find time outside of my job to do that. And so far, it's been weekends. Like I said, last weekend I was out there pounding the pavement on my own in the heat, carrying this jug of water while I was going out sweating and handing these out, and trying not to look crazy as I'm handing them out and talking to people, because when you're sweating and you're kind of gross and you're trying to tell people, vote for me, you want to at least look presentable when you're doing it. So,
Your
but a lot of
opponents are in
people,
the AC, I'll tell you. Your
Exactly.
opponents are in the AC.
right? But a lot of people have been very receptive, and a lot of them just say, "Hey, nobody ever comes out here to talk to us." So that's another thing that I think is really eye-opening, is that people. It seems to me that a lot of candidates just put their name on the ballot and just hope that they're going to get elected because their name is there, that they'll get enough check marks to get in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about that. 100%. I really do. And, maybe there's a local chamber or something, and it's a friend, favorite of the local chamber. So you don't even need that many. You don't even need to be that widely known. You just need to be known by the right groups. And then that usually, that's their strategy. So somebody who goes on the ground and starts introducing themselves to the larger electorate can present a problem for them if that's been their strategy this whole time. Is there? I don't know. There is a local chamber in Huntsville, isn't there? Is there? I mean, do you? Where I'm going with this is, how strong are the relationships between certain groups in the area and these incumbents, do you think?
Right. Well, so the mayor and the commissioner that are
They're
both,
gone.
they're not running for re-election, but they had the strongest ties to the business community. So speaking with the mayor, I was kind of hoping to get inside his good graces, and he's been very cordial with me in speaking with me, and very receptive and willing to help me too and give me some pointers. So that's kind of what I'm seeing, is that those connections are there, but they're losing their representation. So it's going to take someone to stand in for them and kind of pick up the ball, but at the same time, not make the same mistakes. So there's kind of a balancing act there, how you present yourself to them, but not say, I'm not the status quo either.
Yeah, Patrick, I got to tell you, we'd love to have you back to tell us how everything is going and keep up with you. I think what you're doing is I think there's gonna be like a mini explosion of this year. I really do. Board of Commissioners, Supervisor of Elections, whatever it may be, and people like you could cause a lot of problems for them. That's what? But isn't that the way self-government is supposed to be? Right? So you saw a problem, you identified it, and you said, I just can't wait around and wait for somebody else to fix this for me. I'm going to go do it myself. Is that accurate?
Very, very accurate.
And we're getting a strong response, Patrick. People like you.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
That's good. That's good.
No.
We have I was going to say, it's like these local things. It's amazing. Somebody lives in somebody's district. Oh, I mean, it happens all the time. And it's no different here. Very important area, folks. If you're looking at North Carolina and you're seeing neighborhoods change, we just had a guy, Patrick from Generac, come and give a quote about, telling us how different his community has been. And it's funny because it mirrored exactly what you said. That generally speaking, it seems like people were just going along to get along, and their areas are being neglected while other people's interests are just being. That's all anyone seems to care about, and it's changing their neighborhoods. It's It's not providing certain services. It's a gas leak that goes unnoticed until two kids on bicycles find what is literally a pool of fuel. I mean, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it was actually, they were on motorbikes. And they shut them off to see it. And they were afraid to start them back up because of how much gas was on the ground.
So you could smell it. I mean, they were smart not to start those bikes again, especially electric.
Could you imagine if
that could have been tragic? Oh man.
So I think both those kids deserve keys to the city, and Colonial Pipeline should pay for their college tuition.
That's right. Yeah, we're also going to follow this because I know Colonial Pipeline is very important here in North Carolina. I know it is. I get it. But at the same time, and look, you saw how important it was when they had the cyber attack.
Absolutely.
But still, it doesn't mean they don't deserve that they skirt oversight. I mean, that's not how this goes. That's what local, county, city officials are supposed to do. And it's almost hard for me to comprehend that nobody jumped right on this thing. In a place like Huntsville, you would think they would, but apparently not.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of that too, it's like, how antiquated is this pipeline? And there's a responsibility by the leadership at Colonial Pipeline to at least make sure those things are taken care of. And it's not to punish Colonial Pipeline as much as it is the leadership there.
Yeah, right. I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, but at the same time, there has to be some kind of accountability. I mean, they have to police their own project. That could have been very bad.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That could have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, all right, Patrick, we'll have you back, man. I'd love to hear how it's going and follow up. Yeah, absolutely. Tell people. I know I got the website down there, but tell people how to.
Wait,
quick. I'm missing something.
Yes. So when you do win, we have a new slogan for you. Came by Joel. He said, Huntersville has a chance now.
Huntsville has a chance. I love that.
Oh, you guys see these? I'll tell you what. These guys pay attention, and even look on Patrick's card, folks. You see how he bolded those letters? This is good. This is good marketing. I'm very impressed, Patrick. I really am.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we'll have you back, my friend. All the best. Absolutely. And tell people where they can find you, learn more about what you're doing.
Yep. So you can find me at Patrick Thomas 4. That's the number 4 Huntersville.com. That's my website. And
it's Hunter. Yes, Laura keeps smacking me.
Huntersville.
Did I not put that on there? Oh, Lord. Next time Laura's definitely going to reprimand me for that.
I'll forgive you this time, Rich.
That's why she does that and not me.
Exactly.
Again, it's
I'm listening
Thomas,
for the cue.
Yeah. The number 4, Huntersville.com.
You know what? Before we even go, here we go. Because I'm going to change this before we go. There we go. Okay, here it is. Is it better yet? Is it better yet? It is better. There we go. And again, very important area, folks. It's one of those, I would definitely say one of those communities that, states change. I get it. But we were talking last week about a place like Loudoun County, Virginia. And I was just there over the weekend. I was in D.C. and I was in Northern Virginia. This kind of, you need a bold local leadership to preserve what you may love about your area. That absolutely is the case. And I think people being asleep at the wheel for a long time, didn't realize that. And I think for some people, you're lucky to have someone like Patrick. Yeah, it really are. I mean, I don't know how else I can put it other than that. But again, we'll have you back and look forward to it. Thanks for coming by Inside the Numbers today, Patrick.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All the best.
Thank you.
Listen, that is the story right there. Mm-hmm. Because it really is. Could you imagine what could happen with that fuel?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Oh, my God. Folks, for those who don't know, they're on motorbikes. Electric ignition. Wow. Spark plug. I mean, that's how the combustion engine runs. Okay? And I don't know how much we know about basic the combustion engine, the science behind it. That was not, my goodness, that could have been tragic. and nobody picks up the phone and says, hey, what the heck is going on here? And then feels that it's their obligation to update the community? Nobody knew about it? This is crazy. Think about this. It's crazy. How many people in Huntersville just going about their day? No idea. The water. We get these things in the mail. Maybe some of you do too. And you can test your water independently all the time. There are different groups that go around and do it. Maybe, that you're the kind of person who wants to know and have an independent analysis of what's in your water outside of what the city may put on their website, or the township, or the municipality, whatever you live in different places, different things. New Jersey, for instance, it's a township, right? Municipality in other areas, whatever it may be. And I got to tell you, once in a while, for me, it's worth filling that out. And there you go. There's why. And again, big takeaway here. 2020, between both of these interviews, one on the local level, one on the national level, 2020 definitely had an impact on people's psyche when it came to, you know what, I can't neglect these things anymore. I'm not going to be able to sit around and wait for representation. It's just not going to happen. My community deserves better, and I'm going to try to give it to them. Both two very humble guys. By the way, would you agree?
Oh, I completely agree. I think that they are the product of the monsters that both the left and right have created.
Yeah.
So now we are actually having people that are willing to fight the good fight.
Yeah, that's another thing. These are not people who groom themselves to be politicians.
Yes.
We are seeing this in a lot of places. And not in these cases, but in many others. They're going to bump heads with those who are groomed to be politicians. And in the end, that's going to be the story, I think, of 2022. I really do. So will Americans kind of go back to sleep? It doesn't look like it. It really does not look like it. And it's not easy. Look, whether you are on the right or on the left, you agree, you disagree, participation should be applauded. Because that's why this doesn't work without that. So Jefferson talked about the natural versus the artificial aristocracy. And in old world Europe, they had an artificial aristocracy. It was by birth. It was not merit-based whatsoever. And he and other founders spoke about the same thing. They just had different words for it. He envisioned a nation, communities, governments, but filled with that natural aristocracy. And it is merit-based. And it's by character. It's not by station. It's by ability, character, virtue. And over time, without a doubt, we have become much, much more like the old world Europe artificial aristocracy. Look, that can't be the best Huntersville can do if it's a bunch of people who don't pick up the phone and call Colonial Pipeline.
And that's why Patrick came along.
And that's why when it comes to the case of Joe, I want to just say this. I've said this to you guys before. Oh, I forgot to ask him if he was in the 18 X-ray pipeline. Damn it! I'll have to ask him that another time because I want to know if he did the pipeline. Yeah. Joe Kent, I'm talking about. Yes, he's running for Washington's 3rd Congressional District for first interview. What I really, in his case, we have talked about this on the show before. When you're in the Army, right? So he's serving on an ODA. And actually, he's lucky. He's right by Fort Lewis, if he's that group anyway. I don't know what group he was assigned to, but that's his hometown. Well, it's very close to his hometown. Just for people who don't know what I'm talking about, there are operating bases for each. The first group is in Washington, Fort Lewis, Washington. The 1st Special Forces Group. The 5th Special Forces Group is Fort Campbell, and Kentucky. In any event, Bragg is where everyone trains at the Special Warfare Center. There are you follow orders, So in his case, he joined. It sounds like because of what happened on 9/11, very much like many of us. But there were people, and I'm telling you, I know, because I was there. There were people who said, "What the hell are we doing? aren't the bad guys in Afghanistan? What is going on here? Believe me, you have to follow orders because you're on he's on an ODA. He's got to follow an order, and that's it. But it doesn't mean soldiers don't have their own opinions. And I can tell you, the group of guys that I was with very much were independent thinkers. And we're like, you know what? We'll go, stick us in whatever, and I'm not going to say it on air because I don't want to use the phrase, but wherever that is, you can go ahead and send me. Because I want to be in But at the same time, of course, they had their own opinions. And it wasn't like jumping up and down, especially not compared to maybe people in the 3rd Infantry Division, 1st and 2nd Infantry Division or whatever. Just get me out of Korea, or the 3rd ID Mechanized Infantry, whatever. I just want to fight. I'm telling you, it wasn't like that. Maybe it wasn't even like that in the 3rd ID. I don't know. It wasn't in the 3rd ID. I'm just saying that it was, though there is a general appetite for conflict when you are in certain areas of the military because you get promoted. That's how you get your blue cords. That's what makes the blue cord matter if you're in the infantry. For Joe, that's what makes his tab matter. He wants to go serve on that ODA. Of course, he wouldn't have went through all of that selection in the Q course just to sit on his butt at S2 and push papers. That's not what you do. But at the same time, you want to fight the good fight. You don't want to fight the lie. Trust me. That's not the case. At least not with the guys I knew. It is not the case. Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda were responsible for 9/11. Saddam Hussein was not. There were no weapons of mass destruction that they were going to give to Osama bin Laden to take us out. That did not happen. So, while I understand some people, they've been burned by a lot of Republicans who, they get there and then they turn into military-industrial complex people. Notice he used the term military-industrial complex. Did you notice that? He said it went from being a counter-intel effort, and I've told you about this. If you would have just let the CIA, if you would have let George Tenet and the guys in Delta, and whatever, you want to throw some ODAs in there and some Navy SEALs, Force Recon, the Marines, fine. Those eyes were cleaning house after 9/11. If you would have just let them be a counter-intel operation in the way that they can be, you did not need a huge conventional force. And notice Joe he made that point and he said that he used the phrase military-industrial complex, which tells you where he stands. He is aware that one exists and he is aware that they want conventional wars. And for those who don't know what Joe was talking about, I have spoken about this story on the air. We wrote about it on People's Pundit Daily when it happened, when nobody else in the media would tell you what happened that day. It was April. It was 2018. I remember it almost like it was yesterday. And Donald Trump called President Donald Trump, which I think is pretty freaking important, called everybody in the Situation Room, the National Security Council, the Secretary of Defense, his entourage, and he told them this unconstitutional, damn right illegal regime change plan you have in Syria is over. Because for those who weren't paying attention, they were trying to topple Assad under the guise of a humanitarian anti-ISIS push. They never intended to just defeat ISIS and go home. They're full of crap. As always. And when he told Mattis and McMaster, this is over, they had a canary and refused to carry out his order. They had an even bigger canary when he said, yes, I'm serious. And by the way, I want it done yesterday because tomorrow you're going to be working on a plan to take home troops from Afghanistan. And they went crazy. Yes. They ran to CNN and leaked to CNN that Donald Trump was going to cause a vacuum and kill everybody and, spoil the gains of $1 trillion and thousands of soldiers. That's what they did. You may or may not remember this. He called them out on their covert war that they were hiding from you. He told them it was over. Don't give me any false flag crap. Bring these people home. ISIS is on its you are to destroy ISIS, and that's it. ISIS was destroyed. And that's tragic, by the way. Listen, this is why when I go on my little rants about George W. Bush, about Jim Mattis, about Don Rumsfeld, this is why I get as mad as I do. Did you hear what Joe Kent said, ladies and gentlemen? Mad Dog Mattis. I know he loves that name. Mm-hmm. Mad Dog decided he was better than you. Better than your president. He freaking knew better. And he belayed that order. And now Joe is raising 2 kids on his own. This is why I get as angry as I do. Because people are the cost of these decisions. Of Donald Rumsfeld's decision. 2 decisions, which we went over in this book right here. American Foreign Policy Since World War II. My old college professor on the title of that puppy. He's right. George Tenet lost the fight with George W. Bush. Lost the ear of George W. Bush, and Donald Rumsfeld won that argument. And because of that, it's not just American soldiers. It's Iraqi civilians. Kurd civilians. That are dead. Maimed. So they could play Battleship on their giant board. That's simply what they're doing. You and I play, we want to get on something, we pop our chessboard out. We play a couple rounds of chess or something. Kids play Battleship. Donald Rumsfeld plays Let's Destroy Governments.
Must be nice, though. Because it's not your children's lives.
Right.
You don't have
and Jim Mattis.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of them. You know, I know somebody who served with Jim Mattis. And he said, Jim's good for one thing. He's good for this. Jim, destroy ISIS. Okay. Jim, tell us what we should do about Syria. Not so much. Who the hell did he think he was to decide that he didn't have to listen to the orders handed down by a duly elected president? The commander-in-chief. Who the do you think you are? You
Stop. Beep, beep, beep. There you go.
Anyway, there are real costs to these terrible decisions by these pieces of crap.
Garbage.
Who are unelected and think they know better than you. By the way, they rarely ever pay a price. With the exception of General Kelly, who did lose his son, you will be hard-pressed to find these guys who ever pay a price themselves. That's why Robert and I tell you all the time when we talk about Benjamin Netanyahu and Likud. Actually, everyone thinks Benjamin Netanyahu is a monster. He is measured. Benjamin Netanyahu does not like military conflict. In truth. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. Benjamin Netanyahu knows what it does and lost his brother. Rarely will you really ever find anybody in this class, this political class, the foreign policy establishment, mediaites. Outside of 9/11, there were definitely people, who were touched by that in all shapes and, stripes. Mm-hmm. But John Fogerty wasn't lying. They're talking about Al Gore.
Yeah.
I ain't no senator's son.
Yes.
It ain't me. It ain't me. He's talking about who's going to fight this war in Nam. It ain't going to be Al Jr.
Nope.
That's for damn sure. No, it's going to be me because I ain't no senator's son. They always, think about it.
Somebody wants to know, do you think Joe Kent will have a hard time getting elected?
In a general or in a primary?
They did not specify.
Well, it's different. I mean, look, right now, he's not in a similar position as some others, where the establishment candidate has maybe 2, 3, even more viable alternatives that are raising money that are insurgents. And that's a problem for some, like Adam Kinzinger. He's gonna, I'm not gonna say he is gonna survive, but I'm saying as of now, he's in a great spot. He's in the spot you want to be if you're an impeached Trump Republican and you are being challenged, because there's just too few resources to be spread that thin, and there are too few votes. Liz Cheney, by the way, because of one, I'm not going to get into a specific guy. I mean, if you got some things in your background, like maybe doing things with young girls or something, what the hell are you doing? Get out and leave it up to, if you really care about the, like, if it's a movement thing for you, if it's a matter of principle, it's a matter of party, a matter of country, then just get the hell out. It's not about you then, right? It's not about you then, right?
I just don't understand that.
Anyway, Liz Cheney can literally skirt out of there with 30%, 33%. Now, Joe is not in that position. And it'll be a matter of what kind of support he gets. I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he is pretty good for Washington 3.
Yeah, I think so.
He's pretty good. The media will try to beat him up over the election integrity stuff. Not even the election integrity stuff. He is right to believe what he wants to believe. I mean, this is the thing people forget. Like, if he thinks Joe Biden did not amass 270 electoral votes, guess what? That's his damn right to say, in his opinion. The media will try to have a field day with that. I really don't think it's going to matter.
No.
At this point, I mean, you gotta know how to answer it correctly, but people will care about other things by this time. People will absolutely care. And the Republican establishment thinks a place like Washington 3, now, if I don't vote to impeach, I'm going to have a problem. They're totally backwards. Look at David Valladio in California 21. Those districts are going to shift, which puts him at even bigger trouble. But he can't afford to piss off 2% of Trump voters. He can't afford it. The intensity is all on Joe's side. And what I mean by that is, and the side of people who will eventually, if they wanted to challenge somebody like David Valladio, whatever you say his name, people who go to vote are not going to say, damn, how did he vote on that impeachment again over January 6th? If they're saying that, then they're voting against you because you voted on. Other people will care about other things, like the economy and healthcare and whatever else is the issue in 2022. COVID, the lockdowns, economic liberty, whatever it may be. If they are going to the ballot box based on your vote to impeach Donald Trump for January 6th, then you're in trouble. It's like guns, guys. I've told you this a million times. Maybe you could get a majority who said, yes, we should ban AR-15s. But those who go to the polls to vote on those bans are going to vote against people who support them. The intensity is not on the side of people who want to take guns away. The same will be true here. So I don't see that as a liability to Joe Kent at all. He's folksy. What do I mean by that? Owen, on locals, you nailed it. He's like the first politician in a flannel that I believe actually wears a flannel.
And truly,
that's what I'm saying.
Truly wears it. Like, that's his attire.
He is Washington through and through. He looks like Washington 3.
Yeah.
All right? Just like I tried to explain to people.
If you were to take Washington 3 and put a picture next to it, that would be Joe.
Just like I tried to explain to people that even though you think he's rough around the edges, Mike Dittmer still looked like Michigan 8. And who was right on that? Paul lost by 2 points. 2.5 points. Why? Because the Republicans thought I got to be moderate to not get killed in Oakland. You were getting killed in Oakland anyway. It was a matter of how much can you generate out of Livingston. And that's what you're going to, in a race like Washington 3, especially in a midterm election like 2022, that's what is going to matter. And if he does win in a midterm, which is a first-term incumbent midterm, which history would say is going to be very bad for the president's party, then he has 2 years to build up a war chest and an infrastructure to take on a more moderate electorate. If he doesn't implode, then he'll end up like Alyssa Slotkin. He'll end up like, Abigail Spangenberger. I mean, she doesn't look like Virginia 7, but now she's entrenched. She won in an election that was a D+10 mood nationally, and she was able to hold on because of, well, Republicans faltered in Virginia 7 and Michigan 8. But the bottom line is Alyssa Slotkin doesn't look like Michigan 8. But now she's going to be able to hang on there. Mike Dittmer is running again, though, and if he wins that primary, she's going to have a harder time. Yeah, Fang, we'll have some updates on that. Look, Robert and I have been talking, and we probably are going, and I saw somebody ask Robert in the live chat a similar question. The bottom line is we probably will get more specific soon. All right? Ask Laura, she'll tell you, I'm uncomfortable with that idea because I'm not an activist, you know? I mean, I just try to give you the information, and then hopefully, you know, you make a good decision based on that information. And I really do see my job more as providing good information to allow you to make an informed decision. I hate the idea of telling voters who to vote for, but I saw Robert get the question in his live chat: are you embarrassed going to start endorsing people? And it's like, not that my endorsement matters, it doesn't. It's just that there's a line between here's some information, good information, right information, and by the way, if I was here, I'd vote for so-and-so. You know what I mean? And I could say that. I don't mind giving you my opinion. I don't mind giving you my opinion on who I would personally vote for. I think in Cheney's thing, you're probably going to get my opinion pretty soon, actually. I don't like, so far, I'm not sure about Kinzinger. I like one. She's a female, I'll give you a hint. But there are a couple questions I do have about her. But I do think she could be a rock star. All right? She's an attractive woman. She's articulate. So that's what I'm going to leave you with for now. And maybe we'll talk more about that in the future.
You think she's attractive?
I know. Oh my
goodness.
God.
Should I be offended,
The People's
guys?
Pundit. The People's Pundit
I know.
said that so-and-so's sexy.
And he's a married man.
He should be off the air. He's a misogynist.
Meanwhile,
I got
breaking
news for you.
Wife sitting
I
right
do
next
think
to him
she is
saying
an
she
attractive
is.
woman. And she kind of looks like my wife.
Oh,
So that's kind of
God,
why I think
please.
probably
Don't
you
give
two
me-
share characteristics.
Yeah,
Come on.
blah, blah.
Let's be real. You share. I think she's even Hispanic. Isn't she? I believe she is.
Just
Anyway,
be like Elsa.
misogynist.
I was just picking on you because people
Yeah.
are like,
You'd be on right wing watch if they didn't get deplatformed. They spent how ironic is that? They spent their entire purpose was to get people on the right deplatformed. Like, I don't even know if I like calling Bill on the right. What was his name? Bill Mitchell. Yeah.
oh, no.
But he followed.
Mitchell.
They constantly went after Bill Mitchell and
Who likes to
other
steal
people.
data from certain people?
other people, and then ultimately they got done in. Because every once in a while, big tech's going to hand you a sacrificial lamb from the left. Mm-hmm. So it'll make it look like they're not totally one-side biased, which of course they are. After a while, somebody's got to go in the chopping block, kind of like Jeffrey Epstein eventually had to get sacrificed. You know what I mean? For the greater good. Harvey Weinstein, whatever. Everybody knows he's a rapist. Whatever. Michelle Obama, my girl. This is my good friend Harvey, everyone. Yeah, he's a rapist. Don't tell anybody. Shh. But eventually, there comes a time where you have to be sacrificed. And it's almost like the left, part of the left, they kind of know that. I mean, it's like Pol Pot already taught him that lesson. Mm-hmm. You get up against the Cultural Revolution in China. Oh, you academics thought you were going to be okay? Oh, foolish you. Up against the wall.
Yep.
Always happens.
I do have a question that
Hit
is
me.
important.
Did I miss anything with Joe? Or
well, there are other questions that I will ask.
We'll bring Joe back because I think I did miss a few.
No, Joe's good. So
I thought I did all right. I
from
thought I got as much as
Sao
possible.
Paulo, Brazil, we have
What?
Leonardo,
What?
who would like to know.
Beautiful country.
Who would like to know what is the difference between polling registered voters and likely voters? Which one is more accurate and why?
That is a fantastic question. Okay? And the answer is, the simple answer is, the difference is, with registered voters, you're calling everybody who is registered and hopefully eligible to vote. With likely voters, and that's called a registered voter screen, and there should be more than one question in a simple registered voter screen. We have 2 or 3, depending on what we're doing, because you are trying to discern not only whether or not they're registered, but whether or not they're registered and eligible, and we have the right state, and whatever it may be. Now, likely, it gets an additional screen, which is very simply called the likely voter screen, and then you'll determine, how likely somebody is to show up, and there are different ways that different pollsters do it. But you're trying to determine with the likely voter screen who actually is going to show. Because, of course, not every election, not every single registered voter actually votes. So you can get very different results based on what electorate shows up. And the likely voter screen's purpose is to determine what the electorate will look like. Which is why people like NBC News having their pollsters not use a likely voter screen this last election cycle was indefensible. It is part of your job as a pollster to a big part, to discern who is going to actually show up and vote. And typically, likely voter polls are more accurate. Typically, that's generally been the case. The problem is, the likely voter screen and many of these pollsters have been using for years is broken now. All right, so I'm not going to go ahead and give them the answer to it because I think our likely voter screen is one of the secrets to our success. So I'm not going to get. Even when I show you guys a questionnaire, we don't show every part of the prompt if it's like certain things that we know are proprietary. And there's definitely a way to ask people things, and there's a way not to ask them. And a lot of this industry has not evolved. So again, you look at Trafalgar, you look at Susquehanna, you look at us, and I don't want to miss anyone. Patrick even, because he had some very different state results. We all tried to show you who was going to vote. Now, it is possible in high turnout elections that you can do too tight of a likely voter screen. So maybe and this happened to people in 2016. We noticed there was about 12 to 16% of the electorate on any given day who had told us they didn't vote in 2012 for either Barack Obama or Mitt Romney, that they hadn't voted in many years. Some of them 04, right? Among these voters, any other likely voter screen would have screened out these voters, and they would have said, you know what, I don't believe them. They're not going to show up to vote. They haven't voted in a long time. I'm screening them out. And that can backfire on you. Yes. Because those voters were breaking overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. And when I say overwhelming, folks, I mean like 85-15 on some days, right? When was the last time you voted Ross Perot? Right? Yeah. It was crazy. George W. Bush in 2000. 04 maybe. John Kerry. And then they disappeared from the political process. And that caused a lot of these other pollsters to screen these people out when they should not have screened them out. And part of that is, it's not a perfect science. Polling is an art form. That's true. Even when I was telling you earlier about nationality, national origin, right? So somebody tells us they're white, we have a whole other question then. Okay. Just choose one. What best describes your ethnic origin? And the reason why we say just choose one is because we're trying to match as closely to the census as possible. Is it German? Are you English? Are you Italian? Are you Polish? Are you Swedish? Are you Norwegian? Are you whatever? You get the point. If they say they're Asian, okay, which best describes your national origin? Are you Chinese? Are you Korean? Are you Vietnamese? Are you Japanese? Are you from India? And if they are, that's a whole other thing. You're Hispanic. Great. Are you Cubano? Are you Puerto Rican? Are you Mexican? Are you Guatemalan? Are you Colombian? Are you Venezuelan? This is what separated us in many, many elections from everybody else. It's not okay to call Florida, get 400, 600, even 800 responses, and think your 42 Hispanic collectives, or even 142, is good enough. Did you weight also by Hispanic heritage? No. Or is 70% of your sample Puerto Rican and Mexican? Maybe that's why you think Joe Biden's actually going to do good in that state. I mean, it was so overwhelming with Cubans and Venezuelans. We 200,000 votes. Upwards of 200,000 votes more out of South Florida because of those swings. Mm-hmm. And without attention to detail, let me just say that.
Let's just say you don't know your Latinos like Richie does.
That's right. Yeah, man. And that's it. And I mean, it's just not good enough to just say, okay, well, it's Florida. Let's wait it. Let's go. Yeah. 62% white. Let's do 17% Hispanic. Not good enough. Just stop. Just stop. And again, geography matters a lot. And typically, so the short answer, that's the long answer. But the short answer is registered voters is the entire eligible registered voter pool. Likely voters is the pollster's attempt to decide or discern who is actually going to show up. And again, if they're pushing registered voter polls after Labor Day, they're intentionally trying to skew the narrative, which is what NBC News did. Mm-hmm. These are the decisions these companies did. In fact, I think the last time we released the registered voter and the likely voter was August, mid-August, for the Epoch Times. And we said, look, Biden's ahead by 6 in the Rust Belt Battleground poll among registered voters. However, we think about 150 million people are going to show up, 100, whatever we said, 55. 145 to 55 million people are going to show up, and out of that, here is the likely voter, and it's a damn tie. Right? Mm-hmm. And that is your job as a pollster. This registered... And there's some really good debates about how long you should be doing likely voters. We like to track them all the time. Why? Like Rasmussen does. I like both. I like to do both. But why do I like to track them all the time? Because it's so hard to just out of nowhere dip your toe in the water to see what temperature it is. When you're looking at likely voters, I like to get a lot of data over time so I can see how that's changing over time. This way, I can know whether to believe or not believe certain people. And like I said, you can screen people out and it could be a mistake. Or you can not screen them in and it could be, there's both flip sides of that, right? And I like to be able to gauge it the entire time. It's like, how do I explain it? It's like trying to dip your toe in a really hot bath and, versus jumping in without getting used to the water first, right? I guess that's is what I'm trying. Yeah.
No, but yes.
And I mean that's the way it is, and it's not. It's just not wise to me. And I think you're putting an unfair burden on yourself as a pollster. You should have been looking at that for a while, and if you had been, you'd have a much better idea of who was going to show up and who's not. So I do like what Rasmussen does with likely voters, but I would also do we do both, All right, so with that, we're going to go. We'll be back on Friday with Freewheeling Friday. Woo woo! We're going to have Matt Brainerd on, right?
Yes, we are.
We're going to have Matt Brainerd on. We're going to have Don Smith on. Hopefully we can play some of those, some of the clips from Don Smith's interviews, because I'll tell you what, we're not going to let, I'm with Joe on that 100%. We're just not going to let it go.
No.
We are just not going to let it go until there's a full and fair accounting.
Amen to that.
No hoodwinking over here.
And let me tell you, Don can give some seriously awesome interviews.
Yeah, he pulled that information out of both of those gentlemen. Where Dave did the first one, but Don knew what he wanted.
Yes.
And he pulled both of the information that we're now starting to see come to light. Mm-hmm. I mean, he pulled at least pieces, if not specifics, in the case of Vernon Jones, out of these people. Before it came to the public square. So yeah, we'll go over that. We'll talk to Dom. We'll some Q&As. And we're going to have more candidates on. All right? We're going after some other people too. All right? Because I think generally I'm looking for candidates who I believe would not have run if what happened in 2020 didn't happen. What do I mean by that? You know what I mean by that. Let's just stop. All right? And it should make for, like I said, it should make for good information. That's what I'm trying to do, put forward a lot of good information for the big choice for the Republican Party that's coming up. Mm-hmm. Democrats, I think they're generally going to be on autopilot this year, but if there are, look, that's just the way it typically is. If there are big fights, we'll try to get, if there's big, fights, there is one I want to try to get the candidate for. It's a woman, and she's a progressive, and man, the Democratic establishment is just smearing the hell out of her. Mm-hmm. I want to, yeah. So we will look for those opportunities, but generally, I think all of the meat is going to be on the right this time, as is typical with first-term incumbent midterms, the AAPOR party. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. I'm going to head out. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter still at peoples_pundit. And you can definitely sign up to the locals page, folks. peoplespundit.locals.com. You ask questions like when we have these people on, just like that. But also, when we build these polls, you get to have input on what goes in the poll. You get to see the intricacies of how polls are designed, created, and fielded. All right? Plus, a lot of other stuff I simply do not share with everybody. Mm-hmm. Even personal stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You guys see my sod? Owen, when is chapter 2 coming out?
I just forgot.
It did? Oh, you forgot?
He dropped it.
Oh my God!
Let me tell you.
Don't tell me. I want to go look at it immediately after.
I'll just say.
Oh man, the saga of the sod.
I will just say he gave the centipede its due.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna leave you in suspense.
Okay.
On that.
All right.
And that's on YouTube. If you go to, you can see Owen's saga of the sod.
The saga of the sod. Oh my God. So funny. My whole family was cracking up.
We were hysterical.
You nailed it, Owen. You nailed me 100% on that. It's exactly how I was. But the sod is looking wonderful. I mean, it's hard to keep sod beautiful in the summer like that when it's newly laid, and I think it's going to be I think it's going to be the best lawn in the development. As things keep going, I think it's going to be the best lawn in development. It's so green and bluish tint and dense and dark, and I'm not even done.
And I'm gonna be allowed to walk on it.
Oh yeah. I laid on it yesterday.
But if you want to see the saga of the sod, go to YouTube, go to Owen Jones, and type in saga of the sod, and it'll pop up. You'll see it.
Guys, I couldn't figure out. Some people on Locals are able to figure out some software that allows them to share their screen with you when they do the live stream. I gotta call Eric about the sharing the screen. I couldn't get him yesterday. He knows that, but then also the green screen somebody did manage, and they also figured out how to stream. I don't want to stream to multiple destinations at once, but I mean I do for Inside the Numbers, if I can. But it's gonna go off. It's gonna be time limited, so I was thinking of doing an extra half an hour or something on Locals, just Locals, and because that's the way it's kind of set up. But I could not figure it out for the life of me yesterday. My daughter was laughing hysterically. And she's like, it's getting late, Dad. You're going to do a live stream? It's getting late. And I'm like, I can't figure it out. It was such a pain. Because you've got to be committed and ready to hit that button. And once you do, if it's too late, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just trial and error. Man, it's just the Locals live stream is, people say, better quality. And I want to do more of them. I just got to work this out. And maybe we'll wind up using that for, hanging out, stuff like that.
I think so.
Q&As, definitely Q&As, like Robert and Viva. Okay? Speaking of which, next Wednesday, I'll be on Viva Barnes Law.locals.com sidebar with Viva on YouTube.
Let's do this.
All right? It's going to be cool. Look forward to it. Very much look forward to it.
And then I'm setting something up with Eric. We're going to see. Did
you guys check out my behavior panel? The verdict is in.
I'm
telling the truth. I told you I was telling the truth. You
The
guys
whole
know I'm
truth
telling
and
the truth.
nothing but
The
the
whole
truth.
truth and nothing but the truth. And no, it was not a damn B-2 bomber. Can we clear this up right now?
It wasn't a B-2.
You know how
it
many
was-
B-2 bombers I have seen in my life? By the way, when they're stealth, they don't mean they are actually stealth and quiet. Like, they roar,
Yeah,
okay?
You could still hear them.
They're stealthy because they're stealth on the radar, folks.
Mm-hmm.
They're stealth on the radar. They're not stealthy because you can't see them. They're invisible
them.
or pull the entire universe over itself and shoot off into a wormhole-like thing. They don't do that. All right? And they're not that big. They're, they can be pretty decent size.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not that big. And again, that's triangular.
We
are talking about a
equilateral
freaking triangle. Yeah, I
Right.
guess it was an equilateral.
equilateral.
We debated
Well,
this afterwards,
maybe.
and I was like, maybe the back was just a little bit shorter.
A hair maybe short. You know what? Now that
Yeah, because it tapered in with those things.
but not much.
Not much. I'm not
But-
saying much, but I'm just saying maybe a little bit.
I could concede to that.
Yeah, because it does. When you're just looking at it, it does look equilateral. But then when you get behind it and under it, like we did, I was like, the back looked just a hair shorter.
I just didn't.
It's the angles we saw it on. Can't really tell for sure, I guess, but it did look a little shorter to
You know
me.
what I won't talk about.
All right, yeah, she's done with that. All right, listen, we're gonna go peoplespundit.locals.com if you donate to the public polling project, which I think we're close to like 1,000 or something. Again, I'm gonna say this again. Please leave a comment. Submit your desire for us to put whatever in the survey. I would like to see Joe Biden's approval rating. Well, you already know that's in there, but I'm making an example. I would like to see another question about this or whatever it may be. Because the loudest voices, meaning those who have the most suggestions, are what gets in it. All right? All right, with that, I think I got it all.
Yeah, it's a wrap. And
It's a
thank
wrap.
you for all of your donations, contributions,
Even
word of
your
mouth.
shares. If you like the video,
if you
like
like
the
the
video.
video.
We always appreciate that.
Also,
That'd be great.
if you
Subscribe.
want to say
Hit the-
in the polling, please go to peoplespundit.locals.com.
Yep.
And then if you do anonymous donations,
That's on Big Data Poll's
that's
website
on
she's
Big
talking
Data
about.
Poll. Please,
That's what I
in
just
the
said that.
comment
Yeah.
section. No, I'm begging you.
Put
please,
something.
Put some.
Don't just say,
direction
here
in
you
there.
go, guys. Thanks for all you do. That's great.
But
we love you too.
it.
But put something in there like, here you go, guys. Thanks for all you do. By the way,
have
I'd
to
like a
reiterate.
Second Amendment question.
Yes, like
That's the way to
hint,
do it.
Nudge,
Yeah.
nudge, people.
Yep. All right. I think I got everything.
You guys
Unstructured tomorrow. Don's got the conversation with Dave Perkins tomorrow. Lots of all good stuff, but you'll see my feed. You'll see, watch, Locals page. We'll remind everybody.
Yeah, and soon I will have a schedule board.
Yeah, people want that
things.
media appearance
Yeah.
thing or something. Yeah.
Media appearance and
It slows down
and
in between
show
elections.
Suggestions, though,
I posted it on Twitter before the election. It was just cray between the radio and
let's not even go there.
because I was
still
doing a
have
lot of
my
FM
twitches
radio for
from-
the Epoch Times. Remember, it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
2 a day. You're going to Nashville. This is one's in Virginia. This one's in Seattle.
I love how you
but it
get
was cool.
so
it was
much
cool.
credit. Listen, you did great. Don't get me wrong, but do you know what the pressure was like behind the scenes, getting Rich bouncing from 3 to 4 different shows simultaneously?
God, I don't even know how she
Fighting
did that.
back
You're talking about
producers.
election night.
Oh,
I don't even know how you did it. I was getting confused for you, and all I was doing was looking at my surroundings.
I was telling you, shh.
And
this
listening, because you can hear the earbuds. Like, I can hear things you guys can't hear. So, like, I can hear the producer for Fox or War Room or whatever, Newsmax. And, and NTD. And it was just crazy. And then the one, of course, we were doing with Larry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy. It was fun, though. It was fun.
Let me tell you.
Exhausting, but fun.
Once that day came to an end, I was like,
Like, see how we just rambled on for an extra 20 minutes or so? That's what I'm talking about. Trying to figure out how we could just do that on Locals for like 20 minutes. We don't just
we can do
BS.
that. Cool.
You know? All right.
Chill.
So we'll figure it out. I will. All right. I'm going to kick rocks. Special thanks, as always, to the Bowen Band for the theme song. Bad Habit. All the best, folks. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just